Thank you for clicking on this video, and I'm assuming you want to learn how to rig a character in Blender. Now this is going to be a fantastic video if you're wanting to learn how to rig a basic character, because I'm actually going to start completely from scratch and I'm going to explain every little detail starting from the very beginning, and we're going to rig a character. And now this character rig here is about as simple as you can possibly get, and the cool thing is we're going to be including some very basic constraints. And by basic I mean things like inverse kinematics. Essentially that allows us to, instead of having to grab one bone at a time like this and keep rotating it, like you would of an old-timey stop motion, we're going to create these control bones that allow us to have influence on other bones and make the animation process a lot simpler. So this is going to be rigging a low poly character. Now the only thing you're going to need is Blender and obviously your own character. You can make your own low poly character. There's a billion tutorials on the internet. Or if you want, you can go to something like Sketchfab or BlendSwap. There's a ton of free resources out there where you can download characters, but this is just one of mine and I'm going to go ahead and rig it up. So if you want to learn, keep watching. Let's jump into this beginner's guide on rigging a character in Blender. So like I said in the intro, you're going to want your own character to follow along with. So if you've made your own or you found one online, you want to make sure that it sits nicely in the center of your world. In this case, you can see I have it nicely centered. The origin point is sitting in the middle here. And if you're not sure, once you have it in the middle, you can just go Control A and apply the location, the rotation, and the scale. Okay, we want a character that is nicely centered, and that's going to make the whole process simpler. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way and you have a little character that you want to rig, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that your 3D cursor is in the center right underneath your character. And you're going to go Shift A and you're going to go over to this option over here called Armature. And you're going to start by adding in a single bone. Now this bone over here represents a system. Okay, so over here you can see we have something called the armature. And the armature is going to be a collection of bones. And the way we can edit this is by actually selecting the bone and just going up here and changing it to edit mode, just like we would with a mesh object. Now from here, we can select a bone and we can go over here to the properties and the object data properties here. And over here, you're going to see all sorts of things that have to do with the bone network here. But a thing that's also going to be really important is actually seeing the individual properties for a bone. And that is this one over here, the bones properties. So this over here is more like the collective group of bones, and the single bone here is to do with the individual bone. Now in this case, this bone sits at the bottom. So we're going to click on this little bone here, and we're just going to come here to the name, and we're going to call this the base, or you can also call it the root. Both of these are terms that are commonly used in the 3D industry when it comes to rigging, but I'm going to go with root in this case. And this is going to be the main bone we can select to move our character around. But we're going to select it. And in this case, this is how big my bone is relative to the character. I'm going to take mine and I'm just going to drag this knob at the top down a little bit and have it about this size. It doesn't really matter how big this one is because it's just going to be a control bone. But what you're going to do is you're going to grab this bone, you're going to go Shift D to duplicate, and then go Z and move it up on the Z axis into the character. Now in this case, you want to see it. So you can either go into wireframe, or you can come over here to your bone properties under object data, and you're going to come here to the viewport display, and you can change it to in front. And that means it doesn't matter where you have things placed in the scene, you'll always see kind of like an X-ray vision of your bones over here. So now let's work on this. So with this bone here, okay, if we were to actually go into our pose mode and grab this bone and go R to rotate, you're going to see it rotates around the base here. But what we want to do is we want to go back into edit mode and we want to grab this bone, and in our front view we're going to go R, Y, 180. So we've rotated it 180 degrees around like so, and now it's pointing down. And we're going to grab the top knob and go G, Z and move it down. And now if we grab this and go into pose mode and I were to rotate, you can see this is where it's rotating from, which is what we want, because this is going to be our hip bone. So I'm back into edit mode here. I want to make sure that this one sits here at the base, and this one here kind of sits at the top of where the hip will be. So in this case, in the side view, I'll move it forward a bit and maybe back a little bit. So this is our hip. And while we're at it and we have that one selected, we're also going to go over to our bones property here. And let's just call this hip. Now keep in mind, you don't want to accidentally click on this one over here and name it over here, because this is actually the name of the system. So this is armature over here, okay? We only want to ever name the individual bone by clicking on the little bone symbol here and renaming them. Now we want this bone here to have a relationship with this bone here. So what does that mean? In this case, I'll quickly show you. If I go into pose mode, and by the way, you don't have to follow the pose mode bit, but if I grab this bone here and I go G to move it, this bone should be going along with it. And the way we're going to do that is in edit mode. Is we're going to select this hip bone, and we're going to hold in shift and make the root bone active. And then we're going to press Control P or Command P. And that's going to bring up this parenting object option here. We're going to click on Keep Offset. And now if I were to go into pose mode and select this bottom bone and go G to move it, this bone follows along. But if I grab the hip bone and I go G to move it, this bone does not. And this is going to be something that we're going to do a lot as we set up this simple little rig. Okay, so back in edit mode, we're going to start by modeling just one side so we can actually mirror it over onto the other side. So the side we're going to make is our left side here. Now it might be your right side on the monitor, but we always think from the perspective of the character, okay? So even though it's your right side on the screen, it's going to be the character's left side. So we're going to select this hip bone. We're going to go Shift D to duplicate it and bring it down and move it over here. And we're going to grab this top nub and kind of move it to the top of the leg. And we're going to grab this bottom nub and move it down to where the knee is, kind of roughly. Now it looks okay in the front, but if we go to the side view, we can see this is what we have. So we need to grab this nub and move it back a little bit. Now obviously your character might be a little bit different, but more or less you want this one over here, the knee, to be kind of closer to the front rather than the middle. And you want this to be where the top of the leg would be, like so. Okay, with that out of the way, let's just select the bottom nub over here. And in our front view, we're going to go E to extrude and extrude that down to kind of where the ankle would be. And in the side view, we need to move that back a little bit. So you can see it's sitting inside there like so. And I might just grab the knee and just move it back just a little bit, but you kind of get the idea here. So it's sitting in there like that. And while we're at it, let's grab this top bone. Let's go over to our bone properties and let's just come over here and call that leg underscore upper dot capital L. Now the most important thing here is that you put in dot capital L, because that's going to allow us to automatically mirror this over. It's also going to be handy when we're animating. Now keep in mind the bottom bone here as well. We want to grab that and we're going to call this leg underscore lower dot capital L. Once again, the dot capital L is very important. Now we want this leg to have a relationship with the hip. So what we're going to do, we're going to select the top bone. And just like we did earlier with these two bones over here, we want to grab this upper bone now, and holding it in shift, we want to select the hip. And we want to go Control P and we want to go Object, Keep Offset. So now this bone is parented to the hip. And now you can see we're starting to get a system going here. So let's select the bottom nub over here on the foot. And this one, we're going to take it. And if it's a little bit hard, you can always select this bone over here, the root bone, and press H to hide it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this bottom nub here, maybe move it down just a bit. And I'm going to go E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude it to about the middle of the foot. And then I'm going to go E to extrude and extrude it forward like this to make the foot. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select the very tip bone here. And I'm going to go over to my bone properties, and up here I'm going to call it toe dot capital L. Then I'm going to select this bone over here. I'm going to call it foot dot capital L. And then let's go to our front view. And in the front view, we can see we need to actually grab this toe bone and just go G and move it over. Now, once again, depending on how your character that you're rigging is positioned, it might be a bit different, but I'm going to go into my bottom orthographic view. And I'm just going to move this nub over here. And you can see this is kind of what it's looking like from my perspective. Now, like I said, your character, what you're working on might be placed a little bit differently, but this is more or less kind of what I'm going for here, as you can see. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to select this nub over here in the middle between the upper leg and the foot. And I'm going to go E to extrude and Y, and extrude it back onto Y, like so. And I'm going to click on this bone to select it. I'm going to go to the bone properties here, and I'm going to call this leg underscore IK dot capital L. Now the IK is here, it's called IK because this is going to be part of our inverse kinematic control. Doesn't matter if you understand what inverse kinematic means, I'll explain it later, but it's just going to be a control bone. Now because this is going to be a control bone and not a deformation bone, to say it in layman's terms, all that means is it's not going to actually be having any weight or influence on the actual character mesh. It only serves as a control bone. Therefore, with this IK bone selected, we can go over to the bone properties here, and we can come here to where it says deform and untick that so it isn't a deformation bone. And with it still active, we're also going to go Alt-P, and we're going to go and disconnect that bone. And we're also going to go Alt-P, and we're going to go and clear the parent. So it's completely disconnected. So there we have it, our leg underscore dot capital L, as you can see over here. So now I'm going to go Alt-H just to bring back that root bone. I'm also going to select the IK bone here. I'm going to hold in Shift and select the root bone. And I'm going to go Control-P, and I'm going to go Object, Keep Transform. Cool. So now I'm also going to select the middle knee bone here, the bone that sits here in the middle where the knee is. I'm going to go to my right orthographic view, and I'm going to go E to extrude and Y, and I'm going to extrude it forward, like so. I'm going to select this bone, I'm going to go Alt-P, and I'm going to clear the parent, or first I'll disconnect it, so disconnect bone, and then Alt-P again, and then clear the parent. And then go G, Y, and move it forward, like so. And you can see here it has a slight little rotation. If that ever happens, just go Alt-R, and just slightly rotate it just a little bit straighter. So Alt-R will rotate it on its axis. And here you can see we have this bone. And this bone is going to be a control for swinging our leg around. In fact, in the side view, I might move it back on the Y a little bit and just go S just to shrink it slightly. And this bone here, we're going to come to our bone properties and we're just going to call it leg underscore target dot capital L. And once again, the dot capital L is extremely important. And with this one selected, we're going to hold in Shift and select the root bone, secondly, and we're going to go Control-P, and we're going to go keep offset to parent it to the root bone. And with this bone as well, by the way, because it's a target bone, it's controlling something, we want to come over here and we want to go and turn off the deform for it under the bone properties. Okay, so now we have that leg done. The good news is we don't have to do any of this on the other side because eventually we'll just mirror it over. For now, let's continue. So we're going to select this upper nub on the hip bone. And we're going to go into our right orthographic view. And we're going to go E to extrude. We're going to extrude it up to about the middle, like so. And then once I have it about here, I want to go E to extrude again. And I'm going to extrude this up to about where the bottom of the neck is. So this is what we have. Now, if I was doing a higher poly character, I would do this differently. But this is a low poly character. So what we're going to do, we're going to select this middle bone here that we've extruded. Under our bone properties, we're going to call this one spine. And we don't need to call it dot capital L. And the reason is because it sits in the middle, it doesn't have to be mirrored over. So it's just going to be called spine. This middle bone here, we're going to call this chest. So now we have our hip bone over here, our spine, and then our chest. And now let's continue. Let's select the top nub here. In our right view, we're going to go E to extrude, move it up to here. So this is our right orthographic. Let's click on this bone and call it neck. And then let's grab this nub over here and go E to extrude up. And let's click on this bone here and call it head. There we go. Very, very simple. In fact, that was probably the easiest bit of the whole rig. So from here on, let's create our arm. Now there are two ways we can do this. We can grab our bone over here. Okay, let's just grab the chest bone and go Shift D to duplicate it, move it over. Grab the top nub and go G and move it over like so. Right? But what I prefer to do in this case is because this bone already has a bit of rotation, I'm just going to delete that. Where the 3D cursor is here, so I'm just going to go Shift Alt, and that's going to add in a new bone. I'm going to select this bone, and I'm just going to go G and move it up, and move it to the front over here. And I'm just going to grab this top nub and go G and move it down, like so. And now we have the shoulder here. Now, if you were making a more advanced character, you would actually have this over here as a clavicle, and then you'd extrude out like so. But in this case, because we're doing a low poly character, I'm just going to leave it over here as we had it, okay? So this top nub over here, so we've just moved it down like that. And what we're going to do, we're going to take this to the middle of the arm, right here where the joint is. And then in our right orthographic view, we want to grab this nub over here and just go just grab it here and just go G and move it over to the side. So this is what we have. And you might have to come here to the top and just kind of move it into the arm more. So you can see it's just sitting inside the arm like so. There we go. Looking from different angles, you can see that that works. And then what we need to do, we can go into our front view and go E to extrude to where the wrist is. And then let's go to our top view and let's just go G and move that in till it's sitting right from there. So you can see we have it at this angle, and at the front, this is what it looks like. Now, like I said, this might vary a little bit depending on your character's placement, but more or less if it's in a T-pose, it should be, well, kind of like almost a T-pose in this case. It should be something like this. So then we're going to grab this nub over here, we're going to extrude it, and this is just going to be the hand. Now, because this is a low poly character, I'm not going to worry at all about doing the fingers. Okay, so I'm going to go to the side view, or maybe the top view, whichever is easiest for you, and just move this in a bit. Your hands might not be coming forward this much. If it's not, just match it up. So we're going to click on this bone. We're going to come to the bone properties. Let's call this hand.L. Let's grab this arm and call it arm underscore lower dot capital L. And then let's select this upper arm and let's call this arm underscore upper dot capital L. And now we have those named. And we're going to select this upper arm, and holding in shift, we're going to select the chest bone. And we're going to go Control P and we're going to go object, keep transform, like so. Awesome. And now let's just go and grab this nub in the top of a hand bone. And as you've already guessed, we're going to take this and we're going to go E to extrude. And we're just going to go Z to restrict it to the Z axis to extrude it up, like so. And let's just click. And there we have it. Now you can take this bone and you can go Alt R and just rotate it slightly just to kind of correct the rotation if you want. But that is what we have. So that's going to be our IK bone. So we're going to go Alt P, we're going to go disconnect bone, Alt P, clear parent. Let's come over to our bone properties and let's just call this hand underscore IK dot capital L. And let's just also come here under the bone properties and turn off the form. And with this one for now, what we'll do is we'll probably either parent it to the chest or the base. So for now, I'll just go to the chest. I'm going to select this one, holding in shift, select the chest, Control P, and let's go keep offset. Okay, so now we have that done. So now let's go into our pose mode, and now we're going to create some constraints. Okay, so constraints are just these rules that are going to apply and constrain our bones in a certain way. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this IK bone, and then holding in shift, we're going to click on the lower leg bone, and we're going to go Control Shift C, and then we're going to click on inverse kinematic. And then select this yellow bone that's now turned yellow, the lower leg bone. Go over to this constraints over here, or the bone constraint here. You can see it's a little bone going through here. So the bone constraint. And then come here to the chain length and make it 2. Now the reason we made it 2, so if we now grab this IK bone and we go G to move it, you can see it has an influence of 1, 2 bones. So 1, 2. And if I had more bones going up here, I can keep increasing that chain. So if I click on the yellow bone, I can keep increasing that chain till it has more influence. But for now, we only needed to have an influence on these 2. So now we can grab this IK bone and we can go G to move it, and it controls this. Now, if you do move something and you click and it's in place, to reset it, just go Alt G with it selected to reset its position. Okay, but in pose mode, it's not like edit mode. We can actually move bones and then we can go Alt G with them selected to reset their position. But that's cool. We now have a way of controlling the leg, but the problem is we want to actually control the swing of the leg as well. That's why what we're going to do is we're going to select this bone over here, the lower leg bone. And we're going to come over here and we're going to get a pull target. I'm going to click on this eyedropper. And let's come and click on this target bone we created. And now it's just selected the armature. We need to actually tell what bone specifically. So let's click over here and let's go to leg target.L. And you can see the bones rotated in a funny way now. So what we need to do is just come over here to where it says pull angle and let's change that to 90 degrees. And if that doesn't work, it might actually be 180, which it is in this case. So make it 180 degrees. And that's just corrected that now. So now what we can do is not only can we grab this IK bone down here for the leg and go G to move this. Once we do that, we can also grab this target bone and we can swing the legs. And these two are going to give us a lot of control. Okay. Cool, so I'm gonna press A to select everything, go Alt G just to reset it. And the thing that bothers me is, even though we can control the leg over here, I do wanna rotate the foot along with this. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go into edit mode. I'm gonna just select this leg, or this foot bone here, and holding in shift, I'm gonna select the IK, and I'm gonna go Control P, and I'm gonna go keep offset. So now if I go into pose mode, and I grab this IK and I rotate it, the foot should rotate along with it. So now in the side view, for example, I can go G to move it. I can go R to rotate and rotate the foot. And then I can individually come here and control the rotation of the foot and the toe. Okay, so for now I'm going to press A to select everything. Alt G just to reset it. Now in this case, let's go back into edit mode. And we're going to do the same thing here with the arms. Now, with the arms, you could also come here and extrude this bone over here and also make a target for the arm. But in this case, I find it's not really that necessary for character this simple, so I'm not going to bother creating a target for the arm here, but you could do that. So what we can do, I guess, is maybe go back into pose mode, select the hand IK, holding and shift select the lower arm bone here, and then go Control Shift C and come to the tracking and give it an inverse kinematic. Click on the lower arm bone, and then under the constraints over here, take this up to a value of 2 as well. And now you can see over here, if we grab this hand bone, we can control the arm. Now, just like we did with the foot, we're going to go over here to the edit mode. We're going to select the hand bone and holding and shift select the IK, Control P, and let's go keep offset. So now in pose mode, not only can we control the arm, as you can see here, but we can also rotate the bone to rotate the hand. So I'm going to press A to select everything. I'm going to go Alt G. And because I rotated the bone, I'm also going to go Alt R to reset the rotation. So Alt G and Alt R. Okay, so now we've created that side. So let's go over into edit mode. In our front view, what we're going to do, we're going to select all of the bones that have a .L extension. So it's all of these bones over here. There you see. And then we're going to go up to armature. And we're going to click on symmetrize. And now, the cool thing is, if you click on these bones over here on the side, you go to the bone properties, you can see they have the exact same name as their opposing bone, but they only have a .R extension, which Blender has automatically added. Now, if this doesn't work, it's because you didn't put the .L properly. So if you do _L or comma.L, it's not going to work. It has to be .L. Small character L won't work either. So just keep that in mind. So here we have our rig. Very simple. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into object mode. We're going to select our character, whichever one you're working on. And then holding in shift, you're going to select the rig. Then you're going to press Control P. And then you're going to go to this option here called with automatic weights and click on it. And now if you select your character mesh, you go to your modifiers, you're going to see it's added automatically an armature modifier. And you should now be able to grab your rig, go into pose mode. And now if you grab, for example, let's say we grab this hip bone and we go G to move it, you're going to see just the body goes down like this. Now, what's happening here is, and I think I know, is we just need to simply go into edit mode. Just select this bone over here, holding in shift select the hip, and then go Control P and go keep offset. So now if we go back into pose mode and we grab our hip, you should see that all follows along beautifully. So now we can grab our hip bone, move our character up and down. We can also double tap R to rotate the hip. We can now also rotate his spine, his chest, his neck, head. We can also grab these IK bones and now control, in a very simple way, we can control the arms. And my favorite is the leg over here. So if we grab this leg IK, we can see over here, and we can control the swing of that like so. We can also control the foot. How cool is that? And it's automatically done those weights for us. Now, if you wanted to, you could do weight painting to correct any issues you have. But in this case, with a low poly character, this works really good just out of the box. So this is where we're going to leave it. So I'm going to select everything, go Alt G, Alt R. And that has been how to rig a low poly character for absolute beginners in Blender. I really hope you have enjoyed this. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I'll probably be doing an animation tutorial with this guy in an upcoming tutorial, and I will be providing the whole character for free along with this rig. So keep an eye out on my channel for that one.